Hello friends, my name is Marines, and today I'll be discussing Americanah by Chimamanda Ngozi Adichie. To start, I'll say that I rated Americanah 5 out of 5 stars. I thoroughly enjoyed the story about a Nigerian woman who decides to return to Nigeria after coming to the United States to study and work. And with that, she has to confront her high school sweetheart kind of thing. Throughout the story, we really hear about the relationship between these two people, and then it comes to the forefront because she is moving back to Nigeria. The action of the story really is anchored in her move back to Nigeria, but we do flash back to her school days while she was in Nigeria, also to her first days after she moved to the United States, and we also read from the point of view of Obinze, and in that way we get filled in on what he was doing after Ifemelu cut off contact with him. I would definitely say that this is more character driven than plot driven. Feelings and ideas are pulling the story forward rather than plot events. It's a really strange style though, because usually I feel like with character driven stories you have a character arc, and that definitely doesn't happen here. There isn't a lot of character progression, and usually when you have stories that are character driven but that don't have a strong character arc, what you get is kind of a snapshot of a very defined piece of time where you just are following the events that happen in this time, and that's not the case for here either, because we flash back to the past, and then we have this jumping off point of her moving to Nigeria, and we get the events from there. So it isn't that very narrow snapshot either. I feel like because of this loose narrative structure, this book has the potential to alienate some readers. It almost shouldn't work because it doesn't have a heavy plot or this strong character progression to pull the story forward, but I found Adichie's writing so full of emotion and so sincere that I really just kind of melted into the story. I was invested in Ifemelu, but more than that, I was just captured by her point of view. Part of Ifemelu's story is that while she's in the United States, she starts writing a blog, and it's a blog primarily concerned with race politics from the point of view of a non-American Black. Sometimes throughout the story, we get these blog posts just inserted within the text, and I found them to be such a wonderful addition. They were thought-provoking and funny, and they give you such a great sense of who Ifemelu is. I've read several reviews of this book that call this element too preachy, and I just did not think that it was. Mostly because this story isn't really trying to teach us anything, I don't think. It's certainly about Ifemelu and her experiences, and these blog posts are part of that experience, but there is no moral to this story. I also saw people complaining about the end of the book and the resolution of the book, and I think that ties together with this observation as well, that there really isn't an end game or a moral to this story. It's just the story of this one person's life and experience. I think that a lot of times with own voices stories, people are just automatically expecting a moral or a lesson or some kind of bigger teachable moment. I didn't think that this was too preachy because I just thought it was Ifemelu's voice and her experiences and her observations of what she was seeing around her, and it felt genuine and it felt relatable. Ifemelu is certainly a flawed character, and as I mentioned, I was definitely invested in her, but I don't know that I was ever exactly rooting for her. It was one of those things where you just kind of stand back and see what's going to happen because you know that bad decisions are being made. I really love this duality to the story, however, because there was so much talk about race politics and class politics, and then you have this really flawed character in that atmosphere. So it almost became about this two-pronged thing where there are things that are done to you, but then there are things that you do to yourself. One of the earliest scenes in this book is of Ifemelu in a salon getting her hair braided. It's a little scene and there is some commentary within the scene, but it doesn't have very much impact going forward, but it just stuck with me because of how much you don't see this very often within media or fiction. I know that there is a lot to say about the value of a diverse story, but in this case I think it's just so important for exposing people to things they may have not known about before, and for the people who did know about it, it's just so valuable for seeing yourself reflected in media and in fiction. And we can sit here all day and argue about whether people need to see themselves in media, and I'm not even saying in all media, because I don't think that everyone needs to see themselves reflected in everything that they consume, but just about how satisfying it is to open a book or consume a piece of media and say, oh my gosh, and see yourself reflected in that. Regardless of whether humans need to see themselves reflected in media, it is just such a delightful experience. I love that feeling of encountering something or someone that makes you go, you do that thing? Me too. It's part of why I used to blog. It's part of why I make these videos. I think it's part of why we social media, and it's part of why we share things online, and it's part of why we meme certain things so that people can look at it and go, oh, me too. We all know that me too feeling, and I think if you do, then you can understand why it is so satisfying to see yourself, to get to see yourself reflected in media. That scene in the salon just touched my heart with the feelings of a shared experience. When I read it, and it's still true from when I'm making this video, but I was in the process of transitioning my hair. It's a very common practice, I believe, in Caribbean and Black cultures to straighten or relax your hair. When I was 6 years old, my mother had to have a surgery in her hand and she could no longer comb my natural hair. So in order to be able to manage it more easily for her, to be able to actually comb my hair in the morning for school and whatnot, she decided to relax my hair at 6 years old. And from that moment until last year, I was relaxing my hair several times a year, every year. Because it is a chemical treatment, it kind of grows out as your new hair grows in. It grows in natural. So then you have the difference between what was already relaxed and treated and the new growth that starts coming out at the root. Transitioning is the process of just letting all of that natural hair grow out, and then the treated hair kind of goes towards the bottom. It can be difficult. It's a very long process. I've been doing this for a year now. It can be hard to manage, and a lot of times you get a lot of breakage between what is your natural hair and the treated hair, because now you are working with two different textures. There's a lot that goes into it. I'm obviously still straightening my hair. There are people who stop using heat on their hair altogether. I have not stopped. I still use heat because it is more manageable to me. It's more of a time thing. I decided to transition for several reasons, but that chemical treatment is very harsh on your hair. I have been burned on my scalp because of it. It's not supposed to touch your skin, so it can burn your scalp, and it's happened to me where I had scabs on my scalp because somebody didn't do it right, didn't do the relaxer right, or left it on too long. You can also like under relax your hair, which is bad, or you can over process it, which is bad as well and causes a lot of breakage. And that's what I was encountering, is that I started going to this new person and I thought everything was going okay, but they were actually over processing my hair and I experienced a lot of breakage. This hair here that looks like a bang is not actually something that I cut out or styled. This is just all what's kind of been new growth after I had a lot of really bad breakage up here at the front of my hair. So this is all what is now my natural hair. It's actually kind of down to here at this point, which again, I don't chop it off here now because the shrinkage would mean that it would be much higher. But for the most part, my natural hair is down to here, and then all of this is just still treated hair. This whole process has been very difficult for a number of reasons that Ifemelu talks about in this book, which is kind of why I wanted to talk about it also, and I didn't really know how to incorporate it in a video, so I just kind of tied the two things up. But a lot of people have very strong opinions about natural hair, and even within minority communities and POC communities, there are a lot of strong opinions about natural hair, and a lot of it just has to do with internalized ideas about Western beauty standards. And on a larger scale, there are a lot of other ideas about, you know, how you can wear your hair at work, or what is presentable, or what looks good, and just all this kind of nonsense that tells people with kinky or coily or curly hair that the hair that and how it grows naturally out of their head is unacceptable. Ignorance and those kind of internalized beauty standards also give people the idea or the feeling that they are owed something by people of color, or it's hard to explain, but I've just had these multiple experiences where people have walked up to me and touched my hair, or some people have asked permission to touch my hair, or they'll ask me, are you black? Because they are very confused by the texture of my hair. This really speaks to the idea that people of color in some way owe you explanations, or you're entitled to people of color in some way, that you can just walk up to them them and touch them or make these kinds of comments about their hair. It's just hair, but it's also not. It was such a big part of my growing up experience, from spending hours on end within a hair salon or under a hair dryer, or not understanding why I couldn't wear my hair in styles that I saw other people wearing, or being worried or not being able to participate in things like school pool days, because if I got my hair wet, then it would just kind of be all over the place. I wouldn't know what to do with it. I mean, these are things that I experienced growing up that you don't really talk about with anybody else, but it was so great to see reflected in fiction, even in the small way in Americanah. If you've read this book, I would love to chat with you about it down in the comments. If you have any questions about my transitioning hair, I would love to talk to you about that as well. I'll be happy to answer those questions. And if you want to know why you shouldn't go up to strangers and touch their hair, just let me know. Thank you so much for watching this video, and I will see you guys soon. I really have to stop recording videos at sunset because then it's just a lighting mess in my videos.